Hi everyone, welcome to Folk Project Television. I'm your host, Joe Guzzo. Now today's show is very special to me. I had an opportunity to talk with Steve Benson a few days ago, and I learned a lot about the man. Very talented musician. And Steve also was kind enough to work with me on one of my songs, which will be featured later on in today's show. Now, be sure to watch till the very end because Steve also provided some new original compositions about a subject that's not usually given focus by the average artist. And since today's show is rather long, I'm going to keep my comments to a minimum. So why don't we get right to it? Here's my interview with Mr. Steve Benson. Everyone, this is Steve Benson. Steve, would you say hi to my audience here?
Hello, everybody.
We have talked a few times in the past, and during those discussions, I found out that, of course, online, I've looked up your internet presence. I found out that you are a professional musician. You've played on Broadway and a number. I'm not even going to try to list all the stuff that you've done. I'll let you talk about that as we get going here. But what do you do when you're not playing?
Wow, that's good question. Well, these days I'm home with my family most of the time, and I spend time with them. I do like to read. I like to watch TV. We've been trying to make a point of just to keep our sanity and have some fun and a break on everything. We're trying to make a point of taking little family trips. We drive around the area where we live. We go sometimes upstate New York, or we go out to Jersey a lot. My wife has a lot of relatives out in New Jersey. She grew up out there, and we go and visit friends as much as we can. And I love to go. I love to hike, and I like nature things a lot. Grew up with a lot of nature, so I feel like I need to get some of that in my life from time to time. So yeah, those kind of things. I watch TV, I watch movies. Been catching up on a lot of movies during this time, as I think we probably all are, and watching all kinds of documentaries and things late at night that nobody else in the family would want to watch. And I find myself, I watched a great documentary last night on Chuck Leavell, who's a fantastic piano player from Georgia, who we've all heard a million times, but we might not know his name. He played with the Allman Brothers, he played with the Stones, and he's also an amazing conservationist, and they call him the tree man, and he restores and takes care of trees, and so he's got this whole other life, but I wouldn't have known that about him, and I wouldn't have had time to watch this documentary except for this crazy time that we're in now. So, that's an example of some things I enjoy. Yeah.
And I'm assuming that maybe not now with the pandemic going on, but normally I would expect that your full-time job is your music. Let me ask you, do you do anything else other than that?
Well, I have had other jobs in my life, but for the last, probably 30 years or so, I have been primarily a musician, and also a teacher, music teacher. And I love to teach. I've been teaching quite a bit more online during the last 10 months, and have actually really been enjoying that. Always looking for new students. That's something I really do enjoy. And I also I teach at Montclair State University in Montclair, New Jersey. I'm in the jazz department there, and that's been still continuing even during this time, mostly online. But yeah, it's been mainly music for the last 30 years. When I first came to New York, I did some other things. I drove a cab for a little while. I worked in a telephone marketing thing for a little while, some other things to get by. But yeah, music's mainly it. Yeah.
So since music is your vocation and your obviously your passion. I've heard some of your stuff that has just you could feel the passion in your music. So
Thank you.
why don't you tell me a little bit about how you got started and give me a little the path you took to get where you are today.
Hmm. Okay. Well, I lived on the West Coast when I was a kid, growing up until I was about 15. I lived in Oregon, Eugene, Oregon. And, I was 10 in 1967, so that tells you something. But I was very, very impacted by music that was happening at that time. That was coming out, pop music, rock and roll, um, the Beatles, Jimi Hendrix, everything that was happening at that time. And there was so much great music. I think it was an amazing time for music. And I was fortunate to have some friends of our family that had older kids, and we would spend a lot of time with them. And they would always have records that were maybe uh, a little advanced or a little beyond me as a 8, 9, 10-year old kid. But I was exposed to them, and I think I was really impacted by all of that as well, and I'm grateful for that. But I started out, I wanted to play the drums when I was about 8 or 9, and I played the drums from that age pretty seriously up until I was about 20 or so. Started guitar when I was about 15 and played both there for a long time. My parents were happy when I sort of gravitated more towards the guitar. It was a lot easier to have around the house, I think, than me bashing away on the drums. But I realized how patient my parents were, and I during all that. But yeah, I started out when I was 9 or 8 with a practice pad, and then eventually I got a snare drum and built up a whole drum set over years. My parents didn't just run out and buy me a drum set; they wanted to make sure I was serious. And it was a slow, painful method for me because I wanted the whole thing. But I would play along with records, and I got to be a pretty good drummer for my age, I think. But I played, I don't know, my first performance, I think, would be, I was in about maybe 6th grade, I think, and I had a band. I played drums, and we had 2 guitar players and somebody playing tambourine, and we played Wipeout, and we played songs like that were around, and we played at our school in 6th grade, and it was like I thought we were at Madison Square Garden or something, but it was just playing for our friends and the teachers at school. But that was probably my first public performance. But I played in school, the school marching bands, and played snare drum, and played in the concert band, and I played timpani and cymbals and did all that kind of thing too. So that was kind of the beginning for me. I took drum lessons. Started guitar when I was in about 9th grade. We moved to Ohio. My dad got a job at Ohio State, and we moved from Oregon, and I hated moving. And so I think music for me at that time became even more of a, I don't know if it was a calling yet at that point. It became more of my identity and more of something that I felt like I needed. And I loved it even more. And I started playing guitar then in 9th grade. Played in some bands playing drums, and then I started playing guitar in bands, up through high school, and had a lot of great experiences. Our band, my last 2 years in high school, we bought a school bus, a full size school bus from a roller rink that was selling it for $1,000, and we all pitched in $200. Bought this school bus, tore out all the seats except for the first 5 rows, so we could put all of our equipment there. This was back at the time when all bands had big Altec Lansing speakers and huge drum sets and everything and keyboards, and we put all our stuff in that van or in that bus, and we drive all around the state of Ohio, and we played for proms and dances and parties in high schools, and we did a lot of stuff for high school kids, I think, at that time. And it was wonderful experience, just playing in front of people and learning how to do that. And I'm still basically friends, although mostly on Facebook, but I'm friends with some of those guys from high school all these years later. Anyway, let's see here. Just moving in a straight line, I really wanted to play classical guitar as well as rock and roll. I grew up playing rock and roll and loved that, but I wanted to play classical guitar and I wanted to play jazz. I kind of, for better and worse, always wanted to play everything. I love so many different kinds of music, and I kind of wanted to do it all, you know. I went to college, studied classical guitar, ended up actually going all the way through getting a master's degree in classical guitar, even though I don't do that so much anymore. Here and there, some, but it was a wonderful thing, and I loved the music and I loved playing. But I also always played jazz and always played rock and roll, and went to music school up in Hartford at the University of Hartford in Connecticut, Hart School of Music. Then I came to New York in about 83. Went to Manhattan School of Music, got my master's there. And during my time, first few years in New York, I played on the street a lot. I played with bands. I played solo sometimes. I got gigs in clubs here and there too, down in the Village on Bleecker Street. Used to play at a place called, well, I played many of those clubs on Bleecker Street, but what was the name of the club? It's not there anymore. This was in the 80s. Preachers, it was called. And it was a cool place, right on the corner of LaGuardia Place in Bleecker, and it was down below the street level. And the guy who owned the place was actually a preacher, and the whole bar was filled with cues that he had taken from the church somewhere. And he actually then ran the jazz program at the church on Lexington Avenue and 58th Street, I believe it is, which is, I think, still going now. But they have jazz concerts there. And anyway, so there I played there for a couple of years and met a lot of people in the Village. And then, I toured quite a bit in the 80s and 90s. I did the show Chorus Line for 2 years on the road. Went all around the world. And that was amazing. Saw a lot of parts of the world there for the first time, to the Far East, Japan, New Zealand, all around Europe. That was quite incredible. Then that was 2 years. Then let's see, what came next? Then I played for 2 years with a klezmer clarinetist who is a pretty big star, even still now, in Europe. His name's Giora Faden. It's quite amazing. An unbelievable clarinetist. And he had a trio with the bass player and myself, and we toured around Europe for about 2 years. We did that. Right around that time, how are we doing here? Are we good?
Yes, we are.
Okay, good. Right around that time, I'm just trying to go chronologically to how it all kind of tie together and make sense. Right around that time, I got married in '94, and my wife and I had twins. And so around that time, I had toured with some other Broadway shows in Europe, and I'd done a fair amount of Broadway stuff on the road. I didn't want to play on Broadway in New York. I felt like, okay, I've done that. I want to do other things that were more the kind of music that I really loved. Although I love Broadway shows too. At that time, it really wasn't what I wanted to do. But once I had my kids, I started to think differently. I realized, I can't be traveling all over and not home. I want to be here, and I've got to be here for my kids. So I started thinking about Broadway. Now, my wife had always kind of pushed me to look into the whole Broadway thing because I had some connections there and everything, but I didn't want to do it. I resisted it. It became like the B word, I would say. Honey, don't bring up the B word. But then I did. And I first subbed on The Lion King right around the time it was opening, which is, 22 years ago, something like that. And from there, then I've ended up subbing on a lot of shows from that time until now. I've had my own show maybe 3 or 4 times, different ones like that, and it's actually been wonderful. It's been a great thing. It's been how I've met a lot of other musicians and made a lot of contacts in the music business. And kind of these days, Broadway, in terms of meeting people, is sort of, well, of course, I'm not talking about right now with the pandemic, but Broadway's sort of been the main game in town because a lot of the studio work is gone from the old days. Still some, but mostly people record at home or use virtual instruments or whatever. You know, it's not like it was. I really missed a lot of that. That had kind of started being phased out even before I arrived and tried to get involved in things. But I don't know, through Broadway, I've met a lot of wonderful musicians, had some amazing experiences and performed with a lot of people. And this led me to a lot of other work. I've done a lot of orchestral work, played with all through Broadway connections. I've played with the Philharmonic a number of times, even earlier this year, which was really a blast. Played at the Metropolitan Opera a few times, American Symphony, St. Luke's, Philadelphia Orchestra, and that's all been really wonderful too, you know. And something that we guitar players, and I also play mandolin, banjo, which is often what I've done with them, but it's something that we play in those instruments don't often get a chance to do because we're not sitting in the orchestra full time playing violin or playing brass instrument or something, you know, have a full time position there. We kind of come in once in a while, and so it's challenging because you gotta follow these conductors, and you have to be up to the level that they need right away. And it's, you know, kind of kicks our ass. So it's been good. It's been stressful, but really, really wonderful, rewarding.
Steve's talents are showcased in this first piece. Everything you're about to hear was performed by him. So let's sit back and relax and listen as Steve performs Everybody is a Star, which was originally recorded in 1969 by Sly and the Family Stone.
stressful, but really, really wonderful, rewarding.
I wonder, you now I know that you're not going out and doing very much outside, so why don't you tell us about your who's with you, who you have in your home, and
Uh-huh.
if you have any pets and things like that.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
entertainment do you have at home within your four walls?
Well, I have my wife and my twins. My twins are 23 now, and we're all here at home. And yes, we have the dog. We have a wonderful Havanese. She's about 4 now, Daisy, and she'll make an appearance at some point. She'll come running in, I think. But yeah, she's great. We love having her because she's just always fun and
Yeah, we
it's
love
great.
having we love having those four-footed friends come and visit us while we're talking.
Yes, 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 we do. And she's been a wonderful addition to the family. It's funny. My wife for 10 years said to me, "Oh, can't we get a dog?" And I said, "No, in a New York apartment, it's just too crazy. We can't afford it, and they're expensive. And this, and there's a lot of responsibility." And you know what? All those things are true, but she's been the best thing ever. And
Hmm.
I wish we had done it many years earlier. But anyway, we have Daisy. She's great. Yeah.
And with the pandemic having shut everything down, how are you guys getting along? How are you personally getting along?
Okay, it's trying. It's hard, but you know, like I was saying before, we try to find ways to still have fun
Mhm.
and get out once in a while and go hiking or travel somewhere safely. Um, but yeah, it's. I can't say it's easy. It's hard on all of us. I think hard on everyone.
Yeah,
And
I know this question is preying on everyone's mind. Do you have toilet paper?
do we have toilet paper? Yes, we do. Do, do you want me to show you? I mean, I
No,
could
that's
dig it
that's
out.
all right. We don't have
Okay,
to see
yes,
it.
we do. We're pretty well stocked up. Thank you.
Okay. Um, Now, I know you're obviously not able to do outside performances. Have you thought about doing any? Have you got any plans to do anything outside, or are you just staying hunkered
Hmm.
down?
Um. Uh. I do. I do have some plans actually coming up. I just talked to somebody yesterday, a cellist who I play with a lot, who said that we can play on a concert at the St. Mark's Church. I think
Nice
in
church.
March. Going to do. It is a nice church. I played there years ago. I haven't been there forever. But we're going to do something where I think she described to me the way it happens is we go in and record a performance with no one there, basically, except someone filming it, and then they broadcast it later.
Right.
And so there isn't an audience. But I have done some gigs during this time, a couple at the Morgan Library, a jazz trio things, and a couple outside a bar on Amsterdam Avenue when it was a little warmer. It's too cold now. But there's some jazz trio things with the trumpet player and bass player. Something interesting that I just finished up. Um, I go I go to the Grand Canyon every year in late August, early September for a festival that's there. It's called the Grand Canyon Music Festival. It's been running for, I think, like 36 years or something. It's amazing. A couple people, wonderful musicians, Claire Hoffman and Robert Bonfilio, who live here in New York. They run this festival. They've run it for all these years. I've been going there since maybe the mid 90s. This year, we didn't go,
Mhm.
obviously.
Right.
Uh, just wasn't going to be happening. Part of what we do at the festival, besides the performance that we do, or the performances that we do, is me and a great jazz violinist who lives in Dumont, New Jersey. His name's Joe Denenzon. We run a school of rock for the kids at the high school at the Grand Canyon. We do that every year. And it's become part of the festival. And this year, we went there. We couldn't do it. We usually meet up with the kids on a Monday. We're there for about a week. And we teach them these rock songs, and they some of them can play pretty well. Some of them can hardly play at all. Some of them never been in a band of any kind or anything. But we get them together and we have them have a performance by Thursday and then Friday of that week. We meet them on Monday and they play a big concert on Thursday. It's a lot of work, but it's wonderful with the kids. And this year we decided to try to do something virtually. And what we did was for about 3 months, every week, we would meet with the kids online, me and Joe and other people, the music teacher out there, Robert Curiel, and John Vale, who lives out there and plays bass with us a lot of times out there. And he helped with the kids a lot too. We would meet and have these virtual sessions with the kids, and we got them to write a song about the pandemic. And they came up with this song. We coached them a lot on it. We worked on it. I would get together and have a private session or two with the guitar players in the band. And they're all high school kids, you know. And the song is called Breakdown Lockdown. And it's about the pandemic. And it's actually, as of yesterday, what's today? Saturday. Thursday, we had the unveiling of this thing for all their parents. And we had, 80 people on this Zoom call. And parents heard and saw the video of the song for the first time. And it's on YouTube. You can find it. If you look up Grand Canyon Music Festival 2020, you will find it on YouTube. And I can send you the link, actually. It is called Breakdown Lockdown. And these kids, they recorded under very adverse circumstances. They recorded, on their computers or on their phones at home and or a little bit at the music school. One by one, they would come in and the teacher would record them playing their parts and singing their parts. And it's all about how they're feeling and what's happening in the pandemic. And there's a rap in the middle of it. The kids were amazing. And then they sent me the 31 tracks and I mixed them all, which was quite a job. And then I sent that to Joe in Dumont, New Jersey, and he put the video together. Now, the kids are featured in a lot of the video, and then he got some other footage and put in there. And I don't know. I'm really proud of it. I think the kids did an amazing job.
Well, definitely check that out. And I will, just to let you know in advance, I will put, you send me that URL in email. It'll be on it'll be down here somewhere.
Fantastic.
I'll definitely put it across the
because we really want to help promote it because I haven't seen anything quite like this during this time where kids have really come together and written a song and performed it, sung it, and did everything about what we're all going through. And I think everybody can relate to what the song is saying. It's good. It's really good. And what was I going to say? I was going to say something else. Can't remember. It's unusual because we usually teach these kids every year in person, and we teach them, rock songs, some sort of contemporary ones that they know about and they like. And I'm the older guy there, so I bring in the classic old rock songs that maybe they've heard or maybe not. And last year we were there, they played "Give Me Some Love" and we do all kinds of stuff with the kids. It's great. It's great. But this year was different. They wrote the song. We didn't do any covers. They came up with it. So anyway, it's a great thing.
Well, it's funny. You had said that you did like a school of rock, and I just want to show you something I have here.
Oh, right.
And
yes,
I want you to see something here. I don't know how well this is going to show. But you see this young lady right here?
Yes.
That's my granddaughter.
That's your granddaughter. Oh, fantastic. Good for her.
So she spent, I think it was it was either a year and a half or 2 years total with the show. She did a year and a half on Broadway. And then I believe she did 6 months on the National Roadshow.
Good for her.
So she's an amazing singer. It was funny. We sat down. Maybe she was about 10 years old, I guess. She's 16 now, and I'm at her mom and dad's. At mom and dad's with her, and she I brought my guitar, which I always do, and of course we're playing and she's singing along with me. And after we're done, I turned to my daughter and said, "Oh my God, you got to get this child vocal lessons. She is this close to being professional quality already without anything."
Wow.
And
And she was how old? You said
she
she
was
was 10?
10. She was 10 years old at that time.
Good for her.
2 years later, a year later, I'm not sure if it was at 11 or at 12. She sang and got a standing ovation from the entire house at the Apollo.
Wow.
Yeah. So
No
just to give you
kidding.
an idea, she's that good.
Wow. Well, and
proud,
what's
grand,
her, what,
proud grandpa here.
I can tell. What's her name?
Her name is Gianna Harris. Gianna Harris.
All
Harris.
right. I will keep my eyes open for her.
And
Amazing.
she has her own YouTube channel. She's got quite a few things up on there, and she's been doing. She's got a girl band going right now. Obviously, they're feeling the pain of the limitations due to the pandemic as well. But
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
anyhow, that's some more interesting things. That's why when you said School of Rock, I said, okay, I got to do a segue.
Well, there you go. I'm glad you told me about that. I remember you had mentioned it before. That is great. Fantastic. Wow.
Now,
Good.
do you have any albums that are strictly your music?
I do not, and that's something that's been on my back burner for forever. I did do something that I basically wrote. I wrote all the music. Somebody else wrote all the melodies and the lyrics, and I really produced the whole thing. And you can find that. I think it's still on CD Baby or Amazon. It's called Manhattan Prairie Reserve. Now, there's a little story that goes with that one. I How can I explain it? I'll try to tell this quickly because I could spin this one way out, but I'll try not to. When I used to play on the street years ago, back in the early '80s, mid '80s, I would sometimes go down to Soho and play. On a Sunday afternoon, I go down and play by myself sometimes with bands too. Most of the time I played with bands, but on a nice day like that, sometimes I just go down by myself. And somebody I met took my card. He was said he was a songwriter. He took my card. He then called me. So this must have been around 85, 86, now I think about it. He called me and asked if I would get together with him and listen to his songs. And he had cassette recordings of his songs. A couple had already been produced. Anyway, I went to his apartment. His name was Wahandra, just one name, Wahandra. And he lived in a very small apartment in Soho, top floor of this building, walk up. That was the most unusual apartment I think I've ever seen. It was, he had poetry and writing all over the ceiling and the walls, and he had amazing tapestries and sculptures in there in this small little place that used to be, before they chopped all these apartments up to make more, it was like a kitchen of an apartment years before, but this was where he lived. He lived there for 30-some years. Kind of a hermit. Had a bunch of mourning doves that lived in the apartment with him. And he took care of them and cleaned up after them, which was a good thing.
Yeah.
But they lived in the apartment with him. And he was quite eccentric, this guy. But he had these songs that he wrote where he didn't know the first thing about music, but he had a very fine-tuned ear for music in a way. He had an artistic sensibility about it. It was really something unique. And he played me a couple of the songs, and I thought, this is really something. Right after that, I was doing my graduating recital at Manhattan School of Music, and I had just gotten a gig to do chorus lines on the road. And so I couldn't really work with him, even though I was interested. I hooked him up with a friend of mine who worked with him, who was working in a studio at that time and looking for people to produce. And they did a song or two together. Then years and years and years go by. And this was around the time my kids were born in 97 or so. So, this is a lot of years later. This is about 12 years later or something. And I get a message on my answering machine, and I hear, I can play it for you, but this Bach piece that I used to play, it's a violin piece, but people play it on guitar. And I listened to it, and it's just that. Nobody said anything, but I hear this playing of this piece, and I thought, well, maybe this is somebody I used to know, plays guitar, is playing this piece. And I listen, and it sounds like a live recording. And then I hear like this little flub in this one thing, and I think, it's funny, I used to make a mistake right in that spot too. I know right what that is. And then I realize it's me. And I'm thinking, what the heck? And it started to like give me the creeps a little, like, who's doing this? And they don't say anything. And what it was this guy calling me again after 14 years. He had come to my recital at Manhattan School of Music. I'd forgotten that. And he got a recording of it from my friend who was the same one I connected him up with. He recorded my recital as well as then working in the studio. He used to work at Counterpoint Studio. Jim Peacher was a great singer-songwriter. I want to talk about him later. Anyway, but I still can't figure it out. I think, who's got a recording of this? It's not my friend Jim. He wouldn't do that. He wouldn't just call up and play me a recording of me and not say anything. I mean, it's just kind of strange. And then like a week later, I get another call, and it's this guy. He says, hi, it's Wahandra. Do you remember me? Did you get my message last week? And I said, that was you. And then I realized he had a tape of my recital from, crazy, right? And so then he used to work at a place called Eastern Arts, which was in the West Village. And he used to play this recording all the time in the store. But I never knew that. Anyway, I wish I'd gone into that store. I might have actually heard myself. But anyway, he said, I still have these songs. And would you be interested in working on them, helping produce them? And, I think he thought, and it is possible to do this in this day and age, but he thought at that time he would just send me someone singing the song, and I put all the music on the background, and then we're done, and that's it, which is not really how things are usually done. But anyway, he asked me to recommend a studio to recreate. He said he had a wonderful singer who was going to sing his songs. And so I recommended a friend of mine, studio on 72nd Street, Sean Sweeney, and he went there and recorded all these songs. And then another year goes by. He calls me and sends me cassette tape. He said, are you still interested? And he sent me a recording of this woman, Liza Binford, who's just a wonderful singer, singing these songs and a cappella. And they're just beautiful. And I think, well, geez, I don't want to add anything to them. They just sound great the way they are. But I decided to go down to his apartment again, 15 years later now. And I go, that walk-up apartment, he's still got the mourning doves and the whole thing. And it's still just like I kind of remembered it. Only this girl Liza's there. And I had to tell her, I love your voice. I love your singing. And so we started to work together. And over years, because it was always a back burner kind of project, I wasn't making any money from it, but it was something I did out of love. And I recorded these songs one by one, put them together. I mixed the whole thing, edited it. We actually did a concert at one point with all this stuff. But the album is called Manhattan Prairie Reserve, Across Wyoming. And I'll send you a link for that too as well. But it was a crazy kind of project, very unlike anything else I've done, unlike anything I've ever heard actually too. But anyway, Liza lives back in Kentucky now, and she's singing, I think, and she's a wonderful singer. I talk to her every once in a while.
It sounds fascinating. I'll definitely check it out.
It was a crazy thing. I mean, Wahandra was an eccentric character. He was sort of from the time in New York before I was ever here. he knew people like Andy Warhol, and he was an amazing artist, graphic artist, incredible things he would put together. But this was his music thing, which is a real love of his. And he was really difficult at times to work with, as are many people. But not knowing anything about really how music is made, he would want things to happen that just couldn't or were really difficult. But ultimately, I think he really loved what we did, and I loved what we did. Anyway, that was quite a few years ago. I finally finished that CD, but that's out there. I've played on a lot of other things, and I've played on movie soundtracks, and I've played on a lot of other projects and things for people. But my own thing, no, that's still coming. So that was a long-winded answer to your question, but yeah.
Well, no, that's quite all right. I think it's fascinating that you first of all, I love when you get someone that you knew way back when, all of a sudden they appear again in your life.
Yes.
That sometimes you can get some amazing results out of that reunion. I for one can vouch for that. I had my bride, who I'm gazing at right now. She she and I met in high school. We lost touch for 40 years.
Oh my gosh, really?
And I was cruising through faces and names on classmates.com.
Yeah.
And there she was. And I said, okay, just for, giggles, let me write a quick note to send her an email. And I sent her an email and gave her my contact information. And I don't think an hour went by and I got a reply. And that was 10 years ago now. And in 2014, we got married.
Fantastic.
So we've been together since then, right?
Oh, good for you. That is really great. 40 years.
40 years, yeah.
That's phenomenal. Wow.
Now I'm guessing right around 40 years because I'm going by. I graduated from high school in 1970. Yes, I'm that old. I graduated in 1970, and I found her in 2010. So that was 40 years.
Wow.
Give or take a few months one way or the other.
That is amazing. Wow.
And the funny thing, this is, I think, the funniest part about this, and I got to tell this story real quick. When I found her again, we were talking for a year or two, very casually, either an email or a phone call or something like that. And one summer, either I think it was the summer of 2011, I said to her, so where are you living? And it was a phone call. And I'm standing at that time, my mother-in-law had a beach house in Bradley Beach, New Jersey. And she, and I was calling from there. I was with my, at that time, wife. And she and I were, I said, I'm going to call Carol, because Carol, my wife now, had gone through, she had cancer and she had gone through all kinds of radiation therapy and stuff like that. So she was, feeling kind of down and sore, and I was keeping touch with her just to make. Anyhow, long story short, I said, so where are you living? She says, well, I live in Hoboken, but I'm staying with my sister now. And I said, oh, okay. I said, is that, and where's your sister live? And she says, Ocean Grove. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with that part of Jersey Shore, but Bradley Beach is here and Ocean Grove is here.
Yeah.
And I said, so how would you like to see me? She must have been scratching her head because, what do you mean? I said, well, I'm in Bradley Beach. I can be at your house in 5 minutes.
That's fun.
Just to say, she and I did see each other for the first time in over 40 years that day.
Wow.
And the rest is history, as they say.
Oh, that's wonderful. You should make a movie about your story.
Oh, we
That was really
could.
good.
We absolutely could. I've
Totally.
written, and it's funny, since then, most of the music that I write is because of her. She's like a muse for me. She, the ideas and
That's
words and thoughts, and so. Now, I played the next song for you on an earlier episode of the show, but now it's a lot different. Steve joined me on the soundtrack of the song To Be 20 Again. And in addition to performing guitar and percussion, he mixed and blended multiple tracks into the delicious confection I'm now about to serve you. I do recall when I was young, words of love rolled off my tongue. I always thought I had it made, was number one, I made the grade. But life gave me reality, it woke me up so I could see. I wish so hard to be 20 again. Oh, I wish so hard to be 20 again. Some songs we sang were fun to sing, with words that didn't mean a thing, while others foretold days of doom. Atom bombs, the world goes boom. Protests meant to end a war, to free all people, that's what we swore. I wish so hard to be 20 again. Oh, I wish so hard to be 20 again. My car was cool, had big mag wheels. We did burnouts to hear the squeals. Drove into town with John and Skip. We wasted gas to drive the strip. Beatles on the radio too. Sunglasses at night, we were so cool. I wish so hard to be 20 again. So hard to be 20 again. I partied with the very best, We drank and smoked with a little rest, and the time had vanished oh so quick, like a pretty girl in a magic trick. But I was too young to see how much more that I could be. I wish so hard to be 20 again. Oh, I wish so hard to be 20 again. I survived those crazy years, came back from the war, cried lots of tears, found myself a job and wife, had some kids, a real sweet life. But the memories come back of the times before all that. I wish so hard to be 20 again. Oh, I wish so hard to be 20 again. Now, I know how important music is. Is there one specific thing, if you had to pull all the different good things about music out and try to put a name to why you like music, is there any one or two things about music that really stands out that makes you, that gives you the passion you have for it?
I mean, I guess I'd say a couple things. I mean, the first thing is how it makes me feel, but I don't even know if that comes before the second thing. And the second thing would be how it makes other people feel and how it bridges, it breaks down barriers between people, how it washes away what differences there may be between different people, and how it's such a unifier, you know.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. I mean, especially, during this time, we have the people that are so polarly opposite to somebody else, and things are so divided. But you know what? A lot of those people, they're on opposite sides of everything. You play them a song that they grew up hearing and they grew up listening to, and they both did, and they're it's they're coming from the same place ultimately. I think music illuminates that a lot about people. It cuts across racial barriers, cultural barriers, differences, political barriers, whatever. It's an amazing force for healing in a way and bringing people together that I don't know what else quite does it like that. Nothing. I don't think.
Yeah, I think that you just touched right now on the subject of political barriers. I know that recently you did a song. Your song is Mussolini Wannabe, and that song I featured on a show on one of my shows last year. And,
yes, thank you.
You're very welcome. And why did you? Why? What was it about the time that you felt you had to create this song and get it out there?
Um, I actually wrote it back in 2016, right after um, the election, um, and then I revamped it a little bit in the last few months before this election. But I kind of didn't listen to it that much during those 4 years. I did it, put it out. Um, I don't know. I felt like I wanted to express the real frustration and anger that I had about the situation we were in. And also, I don't know, it's maybe the teacher in me a little bit, but I wanted to kind of wake people up to the idea of looking at history a little bit and looking at
Hmm.
sort of where the world and where we've been before. And, what, is it Mark Twain said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And I think there are some real parallels there, unfortunately. And the other one about the other very prominent guy at that time, people have heard so much already. I thought, well, and this one actually seems even more appropriate in some ways.
Yeah,
So I don't know. I just kind of wanted to point that out that
yeah, yeah. I
that's how I feel.
happen
Yeah,
I happened to mention to my wife a few times that some of his poses, like when he would stand there like this with his chin
yeah,
jutted out, like that was a
yeah.
classic Mussolini pose. I mean, oh my God, you can put the
I know, I know. And I have to say, my nephew David Ledwith, who is a young avid filmmaker and just a great guy, he helped me with that video. And he found a lot of those images that are exactly like what you were just saying there. And he put together a much better visual look for the whole thing than I would have, and than I did for the first one. And yeah, it's pretty striking, the
yeah,
similarity.
yeah.
Some are,
So
yeah,
who is your very favorite band or performer? If you had to pick one.
well, that's really tough. Um, it depends what day it is and what mood I'm in and what I had for breakfast. No, I don't know. That's a tough one.
I understand how
I can
tough that can
only
be.
pick one. I can only pick one. Uh, it really does fluctuate, but I would say maybe Jimi Hendrix.
Okay,
Um,
Jimmy was great.
he sure was. He sure was. Somebody who just, I think it's lasted and amplified through the years what his impact was and what he did. And innovative and distinctive, and I mean, a great songwriter on and singer. I think on top of phenomenal
Yeah,
guitarist.
and the covers that he did, he made them his
Oh,
own.
oh, all along the Watchtower.
Yep,
Bob Dylan changed after that the way that he did the song because of Jimmy's impact
yep,
on it,
yep.
and how he wanted to do it more like that, which says a lot. And he did love Bob Dylan, and he loved words, and he loved poetry, and wrote great poetry. I did a gig in Seattle last um, October, and I hadn't been to Seattle since I was a little kid, and I lived on the West Coast, and I knew it had changed a lot. But I had a part of a day before I had to catch my flight home, so I went to the Experience Museum, and I saw, they have some of his guitars, his outfits, they have poetry he wrote, they have like his TWA bag that he used to take on the airplane. They have all kinds of interesting stuff in this museum. It was kind of amazing. Part of the museum also has a great exhibit on Prince and on Nirvana, and I ran through that pretty quickly. I wanted more time, but I had to see the stuff about Jimmy, and it was really moving. It was really something to see it, and I barely made my flight, but it was great.
So here's a corollary to the last question. If you could jam with or play with or join anyone, living or dead, any band or performer, living or dead, who would it be?
I only get one.
Yeah, if you had one, if you get your biggest wish were to come true, and you could choose any one person to hang out and play
Uh,
with,
okay. Uh, uh, Probably Stevie Wonder.
Stevie,
Um,
right?
yeah, and that means I have to tell my little story about how I almost played with Stevie Wonder.
Let's go
I
for
was
it.
okay. I was in New Zealand playing Chorus Line, 1986. We just got there. We were in Auckland, New Zealand. Our first show there. We were in Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch. We were there for like 5 weeks. It was, what a beautiful country, amazing place. And we found out that the night of our first show, our 8 o'clock show, Stevie Wonder was also playing in this big outdoor amphitheater in Auckland. And we thought, oh man, it's right at the same time. We can't go. We can't go see our show, see his show. We got to play our show. So we played our show. Then that was a Friday night. The next day was a Saturday matinee. And his bass player, Nathan Watts, the drummer, Dennis Davis, I think maybe his brother and his hairdresser and a bunch of other people that were traveling came to see our show, came to see Chorus Line. We didn't know they were there. But then they came backstage to where the band was. They said hello, and I thought, man, that's Nathan Watts, who's been with them since Song from the Key of Life on to this day, still with them. And they said, well, last night our show got rained out. And so we went to this club on the other side of Auckland, and we played with this band, this house band that was there. And they were really good. We had fun. We played at Stevie's too. They all went and played until 6 in the morning. And they said, we're going back again tonight. And so we said, well, we're coming. We'll be there. And so we did our show that night. And then Nathan had said, go to their hotel on the other side of town. And at the desk there at the hotel, they can tell you where this club is, because he couldn't remember how to describe it, where it was. So we went there, and we go, and we're in the lobby and looking around, and there's Stevie Wonder sitting in the lobby with a bunch of people around him. And I just thought, well, I just gotta pass by and say thank you for the music, Steve. And so I went over there, and this big guy kind of stands up and says, "Oh, don't bother Steve. Don't bother Steve." So I thought, all right, maybe I won't. Then I had thought I would go around the back of the lobby and use the bathroom back there, and then sneak around this side and come and maybe they wouldn't see me, and then I'd still say hello to him. And that's what I did. And I came up by him, and he was sitting there, and I just said, "Stevie, thank you for the music." And he said, "You're welcome." He did a great Stevie Wonder. It was amazing. It was actually Stevie Wonder. And so then we went to the club, and I didn't say, "Hey, you come to the club." I didn't say anything beyond that, But then we go to the club. That particular night, the band came. They all came, but not him. He stayed home, and Nathan said he was just into writing that night, and because he's not so tuned into whether it's day or night,
Right.
He just will get out his keyboard, and I don't know what kind of keyboard he had in 1986, but I'm sure it was a DX7 or something good. And he would just write, and that's what he was doing. So he didn't come to the club, but we played until 6 in the morning with Nathan and Dennis Davis, and the sax player Bobby Malik, I think, was there, who's great. And it was really fun. I never got off the stage the whole night. Everybody else took a break. I never did, because I was having so much fun. It was great. And they even wanted to, the house band was really good there too. I heard some great musicians in New Zealand. They didn't realize how good they were. They were kind of, this is before the internet, and
Right.
They were great, and they just became wonderful players and everything, all there on their own in that island in the middle of nowhere. But oh my gosh. But we played a few Stevie Wonder songs, which is funny. And I said to Nathan at one point, "You're not sick of these songs?" "No, man, never." So I thought, wow, what a great attitude, But then it was just it was a wonderful night. It was fun. Only would have been better if Stevie had showed up.
The man himself would do that. Right. So
Right.
now I'm going to ask you a couple of fun questions.
All right. Well, they've all been fun. Okay.
Do you sing in the shower?
That's a good one. Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes I do. Not all the time, but yeah. Maybe I hum a little more than I sing. But yes, I do sometimes.
That's good. And What what's the craziest or nuttiest thing you've ever done?
Wow. Um,
And don't tell me something illegal because the cops might be watching.
okay, that's right. Okay, well that leaves that out, and that leaves that. Uh, well, this is another long story, but I'm going to tell it in about 30 seconds. I went to Aspen Music School in Aspen, Colorado, one summer, '81. Um, it's an expensive little town. I went there just to study for a month, and I had to get another job. I got a job working in a big disco place that was there, being the maintenance guy, and I worked every night, like all night, doing that, and then I would go to classes and try to play and participate in all the school stuff as well. It was crazy, crazy month. But on the last night I was there, there was a band that played there every night. A whole bunch of their equipment was stolen, and the cops thought I did it because I worked there and I had a key to the back door and I knew the place, and it was obviously somebody who knew the place. And I didn't do it, but I spent the whole night in the police department, being questioned and grilled about the whole thing. I figured out who did it, and I solved the whole thing and set him on the right trail, and they caught the guy, and sure enough, he did it. Um, I mean, that wasn't so much something I did, but it was something that happened to me that was pretty darn crazy. It was in the newspapers. It was a big, crazy thing, and Aspen's a small town. And these cops were convinced that I was the one who did. And there were a lot of things that pointed at me, and I could sort of understand it. I was a musician. I was from out of town. I was leaving town soon. I knew the play, whatever. But it took all night, but I finally figured out who did it. And the thing that kind of tipped it in my direction was I was working at another restaurant that same night, just before I came to that one. And I was listening to the radio. And it was music that saved me, really, because I knew what I heard on the radio was the last thing I heard before I left. And there's only one radio station in Aspen. So I told the cops to call the radio station, because I used to be a DJ in college, and I know how this is. You have to keep a log of what you played and, when. You can figure it out anyway. So they call the guy at the radio station. He tells them what time he played that song, and that's the last song I heard. So that proved that I was at this other place at that time, and I couldn't have committed the crime. So it kind of convinced them that maybe I was the wrong guy, finally. But it took all night for me to come up with that and realize it. Anyway,
Interesting.
was that crazy enough, or you need something crazy?
That's crazy. Yeah, that's a crazy thing to happen.
Okay.
What's your most useless talent?
Useless talent? Being able to burp like on command? I don't know. I have some other ones. Um, I don't. I used to make up when I first got my glasses when I was in fourth grade. I hated having glasses, so I would make all these funny, crazy faces with my glasses. And I'm not sure I should really impose those on anyone, but yeah, that was a crazy talent that I had, and I still don't know how to do them. But you'd have to pay me a lot.
I think that we all have a little bit of craziness in us, especially those people that are somewhat creative. Um,
Yeah.
I know you do. I know you do a lot of music as far as instruments. Are you
Mm-hmm.
much of a lyricist? Do you do much in the way of lyrics?
Um, I have done some. I've done some. Not. I always want to do more of that. I feel like I could. I wrote a song about the situation with guns in the country, and I feel like the lyrics are good for that. And I think my Mussolini one is to be the song. The lyrics are pretty good. I'd like to do that more. I'm more of a, it's funny. I'm a musician, always been a musician, but I love lyrics and I love words, and I love when somebody puts them together in a way that really works in a song. But it's interesting. I've noticed being married to my wife, she was a literature English major in college, and she loves words and she loves to read and she loves poetry, and she will always remember like some song that we haven't heard since we were kids. She remembers all the lyrics, it's kind of incredible. And I know she hasn't heard it in 40 or 50 years or something, but she can remember all the words. And I realized I remember the music. I remember the chords. I can hear it. I know what that is. But I often, and I know other musicians are this way too. They often listen to the music first and the lyrics sort of second. But that's not always the case with me. But a lot of times as musicians, I think that's what we do, you know? Mm-hmm. But yeah. I'd like to write more lyrics.
So that pretty much covers the questions I have for you. Is there anything you would like to share or talk about before we say good day?
Yeah, I mean, I hope that this year we can start to. I mean, everybody hopes this, I think, but I think live music is something that people really need, and it's a vital part of our society, and that we as human beings can create it. Recordings are great. YouTube is great. Whatever. Asking Alexa to play your favorite song is great. But live music, you can't replace it. There's something about everybody breathing the same air at the same time and experiencing this now.
As long as it doesn't kill you, right?
What's that? As long as it doesn't kill you. Exactly. And I really hope we can get back to that. And yeah, I guess, I should plug my website and all that kind of stuff. I always think last about promoting myself, but I should. Stephen Benson Guitar.com. That's Stephen, STEPHEN BENSON Guitar.com. Yeah, Manhattan Prairie Reserve is that CD I did quite a few years ago now. Jim Petrie and the Dirty Dishes is a band I've played with a lot. We have a couple CDs, and Jim is a wonderful old friend from college, wonderful singer-songwriter, and he's got a great band. And I helped him put together the band and play in that band, and that's a great. You should check Jim out. He's really great. Jim Petrie, Petrie. I don't know. I hope we can all come through this with a different attitude about a lot of things. I hope we all, during this crazy time, we all learn a lot, because it sort of is an opportunity to learn a lot about ourselves and about life. And anyway, yeah.
People's songs, and if anybody's out there looking for someone to work with,
absolutely.
I'll make sure they get that information also. And the final song, what's the name of your final song? You haven't told me yet.
Yes, I have told you. It's one I'm just finishing up now. I wrote it a while ago. It's instrumental. It's kind of a funky sort of groove, but it's called "The Funky Bees We Need," and it's really about bees and the fact that we need them and they're in peril on the planet, and it's fundamental to our survival and our food and the health of the planet in a million ways. And I think most people kind of know that already, but it's important. So I have some video of bees in there, and then I have some video of me playing too, and it's all kind of mixed together. And yeah, I try to play on the bass a solo that sounds like a bee during part of it. So
Steve makes it known that he's concerned about our environment, as any sane person would be, and he's sharing one of his concerns with us in this next song. You can guess the subject from the title, but just in case you miss it, there are some other clues. Well, actually, not just clues, it's pretty blatant. There are loads of images to make it real clear. Join me as we listen to his song, "The Funky Bees We Need."
Yeah.
I want to thank you
Yes.
again for your time and for the great stories you gave us and shared with us.
My
And
pleasure.
I hope to stay in touch with you, not just because you were on the show one time, but I've really enjoyed talking with you. And maybe I'll do the same thing as that other fella did and send you some more um, samples of stuff I've written, and you can give them a listen.
Yes. Oh,
Um,
I'd love that.
and,
Please. It'd be
and if you
great.
ever need
Love to.
someone to write lyrics, let me know. I have lots of words bouncing around inside this empty shell of
Really good to know. Really good to know that. Thank you.
So I'd be very happy to work with you. Anyhow, thanks again so much. You have a wonderful, wonderful day, and we'll be talking with you again.
Thanks. Thanks so much, Joe. Great
Thank
thing
you.
you're doing here. Great show
Thanks.
you got. Thank you. Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.
Thanks for sticking around for the entire show. I hope you enjoyed it. And as we move forward into 2021, the Folk Project is exploring more ways to bring you great music and guest interviews. So be sure to let us know what you think. Now, it's over a year since the first case of COVID-19 was diagnosed in this country. We've seen the number of cases and deaths just rise and rise. And most every family has been impacted. Since we don't have it under control yet, it's up to each of us to do our part to avoid unnecessary exposure. The new mutations are being studied, and initial findings show that they're more deadly and contagious than the original virus. So let's be smart. Avoid exposure when you can, and if you must risk leaving your home, wear a mask. Maintain social distance. Be sure to wash your hands, and anything you bring into your home should be cleaned as well, or sterilized with a UVC light. Don't gather with friends or family. I know it's hard to avoid that when your heart wants it so much, but make sure you do. And I've read so many articles about families that were shattered because they didn't heed medical professionals' warnings. There's a lot you can do during your extended isolation, and one of those things is listen to music. Folk Project's stay-away efforts will continue to bring you as much as possible, and I'm happy to be a part of it. Now, our next show is going to be on February 14th, so until then, please be safe. Oh, and before I forget, keep peace in your heart. Thanks for watching. Bye.